All right, welcome. We're waiting for folks to get on here. Give us just a few seconds here. We're going to do a post-VP debate recap and a little bit about what's going on in the world. Not too much today. It's late at night. I don't want to keep everybody up all night, but I think this debate was interesting enough to share a little bit of time together and talk about a little bit because it was, like I said, on that live skip. So as soon as we get started here, I can't see us up yet. Let me see. Says we're live. Are we live here? There we go. Okay. We are live. We'll give everybody just a minute here to get started. I'm sure you all are tired. It's 10 p.m. Central Time here in Texas. A little later for you on the East Coast, a little earlier on the West Coast, so you have a little energy over there. But we're going to talk a little bit about the debate. What we just watched was... there we go. What we just watched was pretty funny, to be honest with you. So we'll give just a few seconds here to let everybody gather, get everything organized here. I've got all my notes on my phone, so you're going to see me looking down at my phone a little bit because I took some notes today. Normally don't do that during a debate, but it was very interesting. So we got some folks on. All right, let's get started. So welcome to the Rice Report, everybody. Eric Rice here. Thank you so much for stopping by. Sorry y'all had to go through that debacle of a vice presidential debate, but I will say one thing before we get started on a serious note. J.D. Vance is really good. Like, as far as the debate goes, really, really well done. I know that there were so many people when he was nominated, oh, he's deep state, they're going to kick him out, he won't make it to the election. I think we can end those conversations because, quite frankly, he was a brilliant debater, very calm, very well delivered, and spoke factually and concisely and to the point. That's what I was saying last debate with Trump and Harris is I just want people to answer questions. And I think we all want that in the world. So let's get on to the debate. We're going to go through the debate. We're going to talk about the port strike a little bit. I'm not going to get too deep into the financials. I am going to do that tomorrow. I've got a couple interviews to record tomorrow. One of them that I think you're really going to like because he works at a radio and news network that was just censored. And it's always nice to hear from the inside of companies that are censored and what they have to say, from a content creator perspective. And we're going to have a great conversation about that tomorrow. It should come out later this week or early next week, but I have a lot of filming, a lot of stuff to do for my company tomorrow, stuff I've got to do until about 2 a.m. tonight, even to catch up. So let's hop into the debate. First thing that struck me, they did not talk about the port strike at all. That was not mentioned. Ukraine was not mentioned. As far as I'm concerned, anyone who's trying to run for president, who's an incumbent, even if it's their running mate, needs to answer questions about $17 billion, almost $18 billion that were sent to foreign nations right before our country went through a disaster. We're going to cover that at the end. But let's go through this thing step by step. No coverage of Ukraine, no coverage of the port. And those are recent topics, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, at least the port is. Ukraine is a very old topic that needs to be dealt with immediately. But the first thing that I saw, the first question on the debate stage for an American vice presidential candidate was about a foreign nation and their conflicts. That should tell you everything you need to know about the state of the media, the state of Congress, the state of Washington, D.C., the state of this country. Foreign, people on, so there's probably some people on Telegram who hate me, but I'm just trying to be honest. If you want to claim to be awake, that includes everything. There is no exclusion for a nation at all, including this one, when it comes to corruption, and they're all corrupt. And they use these foreign conflicts, these foreign affairs to manipulate your mind and get you thinking about anything else but America. America has its own problems. We need to deal with those. So I thought that was very interesting. The first topic was Israel. And then the moderator slipped up. The moderator mentioned that they had already sent 40,000 soldiers into the Middle East over the past year. If you remember back to the last debate, they said no U.S. soldiers were in war zones. They just admitted to 40,000 being sent over into the Middle East. The entire Middle East is a war zone, always has been. Yes, there have been times of peace. The Abraham Accords were fantastic. We had peace in the Middle East for the first time in a while. But at the same time, there's always a conflict. Always a conflict over there. So there's 40,000 American sons and daughters that are currently in harm's way in the Middle East thanks to this administration. Iran is 100% of the problem on the left. I mean, that's what I take from it right away. Everything is Iran, 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 despite the fact that they're funding Iran, that they have given unfroze $6 billion to Iran to create the nuclear weapons. They went through the entire Iranian nuclear deal like it was some sort of good thing. Essentially, what it did was it funded Iran with strong language. You know, it's okay if you tinker with nuclear, but don't use it. That's pretty much the Iran nuclear deal that they went through. And the one thing I did notice about Tim Walz, he's not actually as good a liar as the other Democrats. Like, he wouldn't hang in with Gavin Newsom for 5 minutes on a lying stage. He was easy to see through, very transparent in how dim-witted he actually is. He talks very fast. You can absolutely tell that he trained with Pete Buttigieg before this, because he used the same inflections, the same tone, the same condescending attitude, and the same pretend to care about the American people language. They did get into the hurricane, so it is important to note that 160 people are now dead. Yesterday that was 100, so 60 more people have been found dead. But they took this hurricane disaster. The story is the disaster. The debate is, how do you recover from the disaster? That is what the debate should have been about. However, they immediately turned it into climate change. So I'm going to reiterate what I say all the time. The weather is controlled by the governments. They don't hide it. John Brennan is on film saying this. Kerry is on film saying this. Multiple intel agents are on film saying this. They control the weather. The largest scam in the world is climate change, and it's not new. This is not even reinvented. This is what Aztec kings used to do, or whatever the Aztecs called their kings. Many tribes throughout the world, when there wasn't rain, they would say, give me your virgins, your firstborn, and your children. We're going to sacrifice them, and the gods will bring rain. This is the oldest extortion scam in evil person history. And to be frank with you, weather changes. Things get changed. There's no way a hurricane should be that devastating exactly 392 miles from the ocean. That just is impossible to say that it has anything to do with climate change, because the climate is cooling. They've been telling us it's warming. And I hope if anyone watches this that isn't already in the know about this, the largest scam in the world right now is climate change. When you control the weather, you will make it horrible. You will force people into fear. There are children, there are kids in this country that have committed suicide because they feel like the earth will not exist 2 weeks from now because AOC said the world's going to end because of climate change. They believe this stuff. This is mean. This is cruel to do to people. It's creating mental illness, which they want, because the more mentally ill, the more they control. But the biggest scam in the world is when you control the weather, tell people the weather's changing and we need more taxes and we need more of your rights and we need more of your freedoms. And then you turn off the machine and miraculously you solve the problem. This is like World Economic Forum 101. If you watched yesterday's episode, those who are in control of the levers of power are not predicting, they're warning. This is exactly what's happening. I digress. They did not talk about the 82nd Airborne, which is usually the first combat-ready unit that gets dispersed or sent off into disaster areas. They're actually not allowed to go to North Carolina right now because they're on standby to go to Israel. That's happening. J.D. Vance did a brilliant job at dodging the climate change trap that they were trying to trap him into. They wanted him to say, climate change isn't real, so they can just make fun of him all day, even though it's not real. And they can make fun of me all they like because I'll pull up the patents. I have no hesitation in doing that. If it's not controlled, why do you have patents on mechanisms to control it? And why are people that you employ on camera saying you control the weather? That eventually needs to be said. I understand during a campaign you can't say that. However, J.D. Vance did a great job. He brought that right back to manufacturing. If you're so scared of climate change caused by carbon emissions, why are we sending all the manufacturing to the least carbon regulated countries in the world? Fantastic way to do that. They keep going to bill, like Walz and all the Democrats, like we got this bill, we passed. Nobody knows what's in those bills. All we know is what you tell us. The border bill that he kept bringing up, it consistently would have not stopped immigration at all. Yes, we would have hired more border patrol. Yes, we would have given local law enforcement more. Everything is money. Solve it with money. We don't have any money. We're broke. And the fact that they keep bringing up this bill over and over again, it brings up two things that if you're talking to any of your relatives or friends, these are just logical debate topics. Number one, what's in the bill? If you can tell me what's in the bill, I'll say Donald Trump was wrong. I'll say Republicans were wrong. But I have read a lot of the bill, not all of it because it's really long. But essentially that border bill gave more border patrol and more money, but the duties that they were allowed to perform didn't change. So if you had 6,000 security guards at a mall with an open shooter running rampant, it doesn't matter if you have one security guard or 6,000 security guards. If they're not allowed to take the perpetrator down, it doesn't do any good. That topic needs to be brought up in every conversation about this border bill that they continually bring up. The Democrats want to give away more money. Vance said, I want to empower people to do better jobs. That's exactly what we should be talking about. The best part about that segment of the debate was when Walz brought up Project 2025. And I don't know if I said this on the episode last night, but one of the founding chairman of the Heritage Foundation who wrote Project 2025 just endorsed Harris. Like, that was a great spot for JD Vance to be like, well, if you hate Project 2025 so much, the guy whose foundation wrote it just endorsed you. Why are you bashing the people endorsing your campaign? That part was missed. I don't like the fact that JD Vance or Republicans are pulling back on abortion. That's my personal opinion. I also look at it from a political pundit standpoint, as you've got to get more voters, and that seems to be a common ground. But before I move on from this topic, I want to address thoughts on abortion. Okay, calling it reproductive rights is just mean. It's anti-reproductive rights. You should have the right to reproduce, not the right to end reproduction. Inverted language is absolutely a sign of evil people, and they use it quite often. Planned Parenthood, there's no parenthood classes. This is just an abortion clinic. That's really all it is. Call it an abortion clinic. It actually would be better. But the problem with abortion has nothing to do with whether or not it's legal or illegal. And I want to make that clear. The problem with abortion is the fact that America, and I put out a post today from one of the pages on Telegram, America is a rotting corpse being devoured by maggots. And that's actually a very true depiction of the United States. But we seem to think that this has everything to do with politics and government, and it doesn't. Most of the issues, the real issues in this country, they went into gun control, gun laws, gun safety, abortion, all these things. If abortion was legal and no one wanted them, they'd go out of business. The problem with abortion is, if we look at the root cause, is not that you can or can't kill babies. And I don't care who you are, even if you want to call it a clump of cells, you were a clump of cells one time and someone allowed you to live, and you have a purpose, and God put you here for that purpose. And I hope you find that purpose. But the problem here is not legalizing or criminalizing abortion. The problem is that we have a hedonistic society that's completely sexualized all the time, and that people would rather have carefree sex than raise families. That's a problem the government's not going to solve. That problem is going to be solved at home generationally. And to be more specific on the problem here, an overly sexualized hedonistic society is extremely easy to control. In fact, in MK Ultra programs and all kinds of mind control programs, sex is the reward. So we constantly have this psychological war that's occurring all the time. You were born into it from the moment you fell out of your mother's womb. You were born into a psychological war. And I want to make something very clear. I am extremely pro-life. I actually regret not having more children. And I'm a little too old now. But I'm also an advocate of freedom, and I still will stand against abortion anytime. I think that's killing babies, period, point blank. You can give me any roundabout left-wing thing you want to give me. I'm not going to change my stance. But I will say that the problem with abortion is not its legalities. The problem with abortion is the fact that we are the only society on planet Earth that this is one of the main topics in political agendas. That's the real problem. We are so desensitized to life. We are so desensitized to human life. You know, there are plenty of people in this world that care more about dogs than they do human beings. And sometimes I get that. But human beings, human life is the most precious thing on this planet. It always has been. And until we learn to respect human life, abortion's always going to be a topic. So I want to make that point clear before I get into JD Vance backing down from it or Trump backing. I get it. They're politicians. They've got to get votes. I get that. But I also want to make sure that everyone understands abortion's legality is not the issue. The acceptance of freelance hookup culture. I mean, this is in every communist playbook ever written. The problem is no one reads them. And in every one of these communist playbooks, a hedonistic, overly sexualized society that constantly has hormones raging is very easy to control, extremely easy to control. And we are so easy to control. I'm going to go through how easy we are to control. This is an information war, and I don't make any money doing this, and I don't care about it either. I have my own business and I do my own thing. I am just trying to bring people closer to God and get through basic tenets of fifth generation psychological warfare, that you must be grounded in your own faith, your own spirituality, to see the lies and to see where you're participating in those lies. I'll get into that at the end because I think it's very important. Big topic, big topic. One that I'm going to be man enough to change my stance on. Then they went into gun violence. That is also a byproduct of societal rot. Whether guns are legal or not, people are still going to find them. Whether guns exist or they don't, people are still going to find a way to kill each other. Vance went into the mental illness problem in America. I think that's a possession problem, and that's just a debate I'd be happy to have with anyone, because there was no such thing as mental illness until the 1930s, when all these psychiatrists who, by the way, all the main psychiatrists from the 1930s and 1940s came from the cybernetics and MK Ultra programs. So it is a form of programming to make you believe something further than spirituality, to think that things are human. I'm going to do an MK Ultra program, a 15 to 20 minute video. Hopefully you'll share it with people, of the deep history of what this is and how it works and how it's been mechanized. But it has affected us all. We've all been impacted by it, including myself. But gun violence is the issue. Now, violence is also what they use to start lobotomizing violent people and test their brain. This whole history of mind control goes back to the Soviet Union when Stalin was running it. We were working with Stalin, and essentially we took some of their scientists and we started using them here, and then an evil man named Delgado took it to a whole new level. I'm going to do that in an episode. But the big thing here that Vance should have done is that he could have said in Europe they don't have guns, but still today in Europe, 3 children were stabbed by an illegal in their school. So you're not going to it'll just, until you correct societal rot and build on a foundation of morals in this country, you're going to have gun violence, you're going to have freelance sex, hookup culture, you're going to have abortions. Like, it's just, that's not a government issue. That's an us issue. We need to do a better job as a society determining what is and what is not acceptable in society without the government's interference. The best thing that they went into that so many people do not talk about is what Trump brought up. We're going to raise tariffs, lower or get rid of income tax. I'm all for that, by the way, especially now that we're approaching the extension deadline for taxes, and I'm debating whether or not to even file them at this point with this country. And that's my decision. I'm not promoting that to anyone. So the IRS, you can save your phone calls. You call me enough. They still exist. For all of those you telling you that the IRS doesn't exist, they absolutely still exist. They're full operation. But the best thing they talked about here was seizing federal lands and using them to build new homes. Now, being as curious as I am, and as strong a critical thinker as I believe I am, all of us think that until we realize that there's something we missed. But I found it interesting. I talked about this topic early on in this podcast. I talked about it on Telegram for a couple of years. People don't realize how much of the land in this country the government owns. In a free country, the government would govern the people. In a socialist or communist country, the government would own the land and lease it to the people. So I took literally 14 seconds and went on Google and unfortunately Google, but it was just what I used. And I looked on Google for a specific reason. And I Googled, what percentage of land does the federal government own? And I knew this number. This number is actually smaller than what I've seen in the past. I have read 36 to 38% of all the land in America is owned by the government. Now, Google says it's 28%. Here's the interesting thing. Key points that it says. Total acreage. The federal government manages around 640 million acres of land. Okay, so I want to keep these numbers in mind because there's still censorship. They're still hiding things from you. And it was evident during this debate when I searched this. So again, 28%, 640 million acres. Okay. Then I searched China. How much, exact same thing. What percentage of American land does China own? Now it says China owns less than 1%. Less than 1% is highlighted. I had to click a search button, or a show more button to go below it to find out what the acreage was. So again, the United States government owns 28% with 640 million acres of land, but the Chinese only own less than 1% with 380,000 acres of land. Those numbers don't match up. I get 640 million, 380,000. I get that. The most recent report that came out from the government about a year ago was that the Chinese owned well over 500,000 acres. That's a lot more than 380,000 acres, especially for anybody who owns land and knows how expensive 1 acre of land is. So when we look at these two things, yes, it's less than 1%. The number should be 0 for Chinese. The number should be 0 for the government, with the exception of military land, federal energy land, and perhaps some research facilities. But they own 28% of the land in America. And the Chinese, who don't live here at all, have no incentive here. They actually own, they're saying less than 1%. But they've also cut this number in half to put it on Google. Government reports from over a year ago said that they owned over 500,000 acres of land in this country. That number, I've heard from other people, farmers in particular, is closer to 750,000. So they're underplaying it on the actual search engines. I just thought that was an interesting thing that we should see, because they censor everything and belittle everything and try to hide their friends. So seizing federal land, awesome topic to bring up. Actually, I thoroughly thought that was one of the best questions we've seen on a debate yet. Here's another inconsistency. They went right into healthcare because, of course, healthcare is a big topic, and they went into Obamacare, and I lived through Obamacare like many others did. They told us everything would be cheaper. It was all more expensive, and they created a tax out of a luxury item. Insurance should be a luxury item. If you want it, buy it. If you don't want it and gamble, you have every right to do that in a free country. The fact that they mandated insurance and mandated employers to offer insurance was an absolute tax on the American people and American businesses, because I'm an American person who owned an American business, and it cut away at my profit margin by about 12%, and about half of my employees didn't want it anyway. So, I mean, this is just stupid stuff. But the best thing they brought up is that Tim Walz actually was a good liar who said that the cost of healthcare has gone down. Have any of your healthcare gone down? Has your car insurance gone? My car insurance has doubled this year. My health insurance has gone up more. My car insurance doubled. My homeowner's insurance went up. I had to pay more to fix my roof after a hailstorm than I would have a year ago. Everything went up, but the best part is it proves another point. While the politicians are out there saying the cost of healthcare is getting too expensive, right? They're saying it's getting too expensive. I'm sorry, I was the wrong way. He said it's getting more expensive, and they both agreed on that. My mistake. I'm reading notes off my phone. I normally have them handwritten. The actual truth is that if you read the CPI reports, the inflation reports that come out, and by the way, there's another one coming out in a couple weeks, the last CPI report reported that health insurance cost had gone down 33%. So while two politicians are on stage saying it went up, the actual CPI, which these politicians sign off on and hire the people who do it, they actually say in the CPI that it's gone down 33%. So which one is it? We all know it went higher, but you should now know that all of your government reporting is fraudulent to make these politicians look better, especially these incumbents. And Walz did say it costs more now, but he also said it costs more now, and that means that it's working. Really pay attention to what these people say. This is right after he said that he's now friends with school shooters. I hope Tim Walz runs and loses for elections for the next 10 years, because he is a walking meme maker. He if Richard Simmons and somebody else had a baby, that would be Tim Walz. He is a caricature of a typical moron, and it was actually entertaining to listen to him. Unlike Harris, who's like nails on a chalkboard. They're both idiots, but at least he's entertaining because he's kind of like the teddy bear Ted, except he doesn't use cuss words or say vulgar things. But you take him about as seriously as you do Ted the teddy bear. But he did say it's going up, and that means that it's working. So guess what? By definition, your politicians believe that if costs go up on things, then it's working. Really, I hope someone takes that clip and they put it all through the internet. So I'm not going to do that, but I hope somebody does, and they put it all through the internet, because it's exactly what they mean. Tim Walz kept going into how great Minnesota is. Here in Minnesota, we do this. We have the best healthcare. We have all these other things. I don't know a single I know a lot of people from Minnesota. I don't know a single person from Minnesota that would agree with him on any of that, number one. And I get a lot of my information from people. I don't need to research on the internet and draw conclusions. I actually call people and see what's going on. But let's talk about Minnesota. So Minnesota is this great place with Tim Walz, who's a brilliant governor, who had the strictest lockdowns, who were completely torn apart in George Floyd riots, sold all that property to all the elite billionaire with no questions asked. They have jihadis in office all over the place, especially in Minnesota. Somalis, who some of them aren't even American citizens, are winning campaigns, which means that there's a rigged election there as well. But let's talk about Minnesota. Minneapolis right now does Zur. They actually allow the performance and public broadcast of Muslim prayer at noon in what was once a Christian nation. And they actually just signed on 3 illegal immigrants from Somalia to be police officers in Minnesota, where there's also tampons in the boys' bathroom. So Tim Walz, entertaining as he may be, and the best part about Tim Walz is that he just took vigorous notes. I mean, every time J.D. Vance was talking, he was taking notes. I want to see those notes. I want to see what notes this guy was taking, because he was getting taken to the wood shop in that debate, and he knows it. I have never heard anyone, except for somebody getting destroyed in a debate, often agree with the other person they're debating with. That wasn't a kindness gesture. It was saying, yeah, you're right and you're better at this, subconsciously. That's what that means. Then, of course, they went right into the election fraud. Will you, they want to pigeonhole, and I want to remind everyone that in 1984, if you've ever read Orwell's 1984, watched the movie or whatever, in all dystopian, communist-driven, futuristic movies, they use the same, like they're telling you what's coming. When someone disagrees with the government, they get arrested. Like that's just kind of how it works. And the person who gets arrested because they agreed with someone who is speaking the truth, and it's such a great meme that goes around. There was no such thing as a fact checker until the truth started coming out. That's how long we've been lied to, okay? Fact checking just began in 2016. That means that truth has been coming out since 2016. Whether you want to absorb it or not, it's completely up to you. It's a free country. You can live in delusion as a slave all you'd like, or you can open your eyes, leave the matrix, and realize that it's just an illusion. But in all of these, like 1984, there's submission tactics. So those who go against the state, against Eurasia, those who go against them, they're forced to go on camera and submit and say, no, I was wrong. I was brainwashed. I believed these people. And yes, the sky is actually green and not blue. And the grass is actually green, or actually purple and not green. That's exactly what's happened. These are communist tactics. If you don't know their tactics, you fall for them because they're very good at it. Communists know everything about you. Everything. They have all the data in the world. They track your home. They're on your phone. They're in your ring. They're in your thermometer that's now connected to the Internet of... You know what the Internet of Things stands for? Ultimate Communist Surveillance State. They know everything about you. You know nothing about them. So you should at least understand their tactics. So they keep coming back to the 2020 election and to January 6th to try to corner these guys into saying, you were right, I'm wrong, let me get into office. And I love the fact that they never do it. They always play pre-victim. Pay attention for any nation, politician, person who's always the victim. Whoever is always the victim is usually the perpetrator. That's a fundamental. Ask any cop, ask anybody. Those who play victim all the time or pre-victim, by them saying, well, we're going to rig it again and you're going to complain. You can't complain. Remember 2020? You need to say right now, denounce Donald Trump. That election was rigged 100%. And I don't need to go further than stating this simple fact. In 2020, there were 138 million registered voters in America. They counted 151 million votes. And no one said a thing. And those who said anything were forced into video submission like in 1984. Pay attention to commie tactics because they're everywhere. So that's all I have on the debate, because other than that, it was just a thorough butt kicking all on one side, and it was great. So before I get into some quick news before we go to bed, because I want to make this as quick and painless as possible, because, there's a lot of stuff to do, and at the same time, that was actually very entertaining. J.D. Vance was awesome in that, and for all those people who hated him, I've never said anything. I try to stay out of the he's bad and he's good. Let the fruit of the tree bear itself. The fruit today was fantastic. I actually think J.D. Vance is a better debater than Trump, to be honest with you, just based on this performance. I will say that over and over again because I believe it to be true. However, I do want to throw out, because I don't want to be a one-sided echo chamber. I'm trying to search for the truth. And I will say that the state of California did something good today for people. They actually passed a bill that bans 6 different food dyes from school cafeterias. I've been asked by many people to do an episode on Red 40. Is it bad for you? The answer is yes, it's a carcinogen. So they've, if nothing else, eliminated 6 carcinogens from the children who go to school in California. Now, what's going to happen from here, I don't know. They're going to allow 6 new ones that do the same thing. But if nothing else, and again, the chemicals you consume in every mind control program, I've studied these things for a long time. Every mind control program that's ever existed, you have to put something in the body that alters the state of the body. Our food, thank God that RFK, whether he turns out to be a good guy or bad guy, doesn't matter. He's exposing the fact that the food industry is putting things in your body that not only kill you, but they demoralize you and allow you to be brainwashed. I mean, that's just the way it works. There is a new prime minister in Japan. This is going to be very interesting this week because this new prime minister, Ishiba, is coming in and talking about raising rates in the Bank of Japan. We'll pay attention to that later this week. It's going to be a very interesting topic. The North Carolina Air National Guard has hauled over 100,000 pounds of supply from FEMA into North Carolina, Western North Carolina. That's awesome. I've been communicating with people in Asheville since this thing started, and I can tell you that a lot of the real patriots around there, I won't disclose who they are, the real patriots around there are going to be really active tomorrow, making sure people get stuff out there, and things are really, really picking up on that side of things. So I want to close this out with a few things. Now, a lot of people have compared the Hurricane Helene to Katrina that ravaged New Orleans. And I haven't heard anyone online talking about what happened behind the scenes in Katrina, because this is a horrible event. I'm not going to cover Israel and all the other stuff. This is about America today, because that's what I focus on. That's what I care about. And the mere fact, I will go into a little bit in just a minute. But during Katrina, and I thought it was a conspiracy theory, but it's not, because I've seen about 50 videos now. In Katrina, they used that disaster to kick down doors and confiscate weapons. So I would be on the lookout for that, and I can guarantee there's plenty of people in North Carolina that won't allow that to happen. But that is something that no one's talking about right now, is they use these disasters, especially when the looting begins. The looting is bad. There's plenty of people putting videos out right now talking about sheriffs telling them to make sure that they have a weapon on them that is loaded and ready to go, because looting is getting bad. There's no power and electricity still into well over 1 million homes. I have more pictures on my phone from the devastation there directly from people in North Carolina and Tennessee. That's heartbreaking. It's hard. Before I move on, we are all praying for you. There are supplies on the way. There are people who are helping our channel. We had a donation page where you can go on Amazon, order stuff. They'll send it out there. There's plenty of things if you're looking to see how you can help in the whole disaster area from Florida, Georgia, all the way up. There are organizations that are doing it. But in the midst of this, Joe Biden was on camera today, basically saying this is the day after he authorized almost $18 billion to foreign nations, plus $160 million to Haiti. So while Haiti is dumping all their worst people into this country who are literally raping and killing people and eating pets, that is real, that is true, at least sacrificing them. There are pigs with drained blood all over the place in Ohio. That is a voodoo ritual being performed by people who perform voodoo in their homeland. When you invite in foreigners, you invite in another culture, and our culture is confused enough. But they did authorize another $160 million in relief funds to Haiti before they have released a single penny of federal funding to anybody in the disaster area from the hurricane. And as far as I know, they've only given away about $140 million total to East Palestine, Ohio, which is, or Maui, less than that even. So we're not doing anything. In the middle of all this, Joe Biden was caught on camera in the supposed White House saying that, we need you guys to keep funding all these people in this disaster area. We need that to happen. It's going to be expensive. We're America. We can pull through. We're going to do that. Okay, Joe, whoever you are, we're going to keep helping fellow Americans, and we are going to keep an absolute batch of receipts and be able to turn those in at some point in time, because this is a problem the federal government should be solving, and not foreign wars and foreign nations that are clearly being started by intelligence agencies. If we haven't learned anything yet, we're going to learn that in a few minutes. Another big topic today, Julian Assange did his first press conference since being released from jail. He admitted he chose freedom over non-censorship and ability, which I thought was great. But one of the things, his speech this morning was strange in many ways, because you can tell Julian's a little bit beat up from the things he's gone through. In my opinion, this guy is an absolute hero of humanity. And he did say something that a lot of people should pay attention to. He called Mike Pompeo and Bill Barr murderers. They absolutely conspired to have him killed for releasing FOIA information from the government. But Julian Assange is now stepping back into the public forum. I don't know what that means. I hope and I suppose that that's probably a good thing. And I hope that we see more of him. And I hope he takes the gloves off and lets some of the information loose. I thought that was great. Now, with this war situation, I'm going to cover that more tomorrow. You know, I've mentioned at least 2 people on this show that were supposedly Hamas and Hezbollah, who were both agents of Mossad from Israel. Remember what I said about victims? Just remember that. They are telegraphing every move. Okay, when you're getting an alert on Telegram or Twitter, which is not like a direct pipeline into a government as far as I know. When you're getting that information out there, I used to share it all the time. Now I'm very hesitant to do so. When Iran is supposedly telling the press that they're preparing to attack Israel, that's an orchestrated event. In a real war, you don't announce it to the public and then do it. You just start launching missiles, okay? This is being done to distract you from the fact that Americans are hurting, that our economy is in shambles, that we have a port shutting down, which I'm going to get into in a minute because there's another commie tactic taking place there. And they are using these foreign wars because Americans inherently are good people of good moral character. We want to help everyone. I don't want to see any war. Zero war, especially when they're clearly being orchestrated by operatives of intelligence agencies and thoroughly endorsed by governments. And I especially don't want to see wars where the opposition has offered peace. You know what happened the last time a huge opposition in a war offered peace 20 times? You had World War II. That's what happened. Little known fact, Adolf Hitler sent 20 letters offering peace to England, and they ignored them all, and you saw what happened afterward. This is the same path that we're on right now. But they're using this to divide Americans. Oh, do you support Israel or Palestine? I support North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and South Carolina, and every blue-blooded American who's suffering at the hands of a hurricane that was probably started by government technology called climate change, who needs our help and our support. Period. End of story. The more you hear about things they're going to invade tomorrow, they're going to shoot missiles, that is part of a brainwashing program. That is mind control, psychological warfare 101. Get your blood pumping so that you can argue with another American about whether you should support a foreign country. Do you see how this works yet? Are you starting to see it? Now, on the other hand, this is also being used in the economic war. What we saw in the last few days, right, we have 40+% of our ports that are shutting down, which they didn't mention in the debate, which means they don't want you to know about it, even though everybody knows about it, because nowhere around here people still haven't learned a thing. Okay, I've been hearing stuff in Dallas all day long. I heard from one person. I have plenty of food and water and everything else, but I heard from people who were trying to stock up because of a possible supply shortage, that when they went to certain places, there was no water, but everywhere they went had no toilet paper. Guys, if things get really bad, really, really bad, you're going to wipe your butt with anything. But you're not going to have anything to wipe if you don't have any food or water in your system. So if you're really scared about things moving forward, you want to prep. Toilet paper is kind of bottom of the barrel. Have some, paper towels, things like that. Bottom of the barrel. You're not going to live on toilet paper if you're missing supplies. Toilet paper is probably the last on the list. Get some food, water, guns, ammo, things like that, things that are actually important. If you'd like to, I'll bring a survivalist on here and let him give you a full checklist, a guy that helped me out with this. I don't like the scare tactics. Something bad is coming, and I think you all can feel that. And I've been saying for 3.5 years, while other people are telling you to sit around and eat popcorn, it's all fake. It's real. We are going to have to walk through hell to get to heaven. and we are going to create heaven on earth with God's grace and with our ability to love our neighbor and work together. And we're seeing that. We're seeing Americans wanting to help Americans, but as soon as we start wanting to help each other, now we get orchestrated wars in foreign nations. Do you see how this works? This also works financially. For the last 3.5 weeks, for the first time in my fairly long financial career, I watched a unison effort of global traders in the energy sector unify on the fact that oil was going down. They knew about the port strikes before we did. We've been talking about this. Should have happened 1.5 years ago, guys. I'm getting the ports in a minute. They knew about it. They drove the price of oil down. The price of oil was down. There's an opportunity to make money. So not only can you distract the American people with a intelligence-started foreign war, you can also start firing missiles and raise the price of oil, which went up $3 today. This is how these things work. We live in a controlled system. And until you fully grasp that all of it is controlled, not just some of it, all of it is controlled, you'll always fall for these tactics. So please don't fall for that. Stay calm, stay level, see what happens next. Best approach to take, especially in times of heavy psychological warfare. Now let's get into the ports. I'm going to do a full financial breakdown of the potential impacts of the port situation, the strike situation, tomorrow or Thursday, depending on my schedule and time. It's going to take me some time to put it together, but I think I'm almost there, and I have a ton of other stuff to do for work. Now, I want to talk about the port situation as a whole, because I think aside from the financial impacts and the things that are kind of scary to look at, to be honest with you, this will have a big impact on the economy. I think we need to start looking at the narratives and the public perception of what's happening here. So here's the situation in the ports, okay? Let's just remove who we think is good and who we think is bad, because we don't know. We have no idea, okay? Gavin Newsom just did something good for children. Like, I don't even know how that happens. But here's the situation. These port workers wanted to go on strike 1.5 years ago. They actually signed a contract with the port owners. The people, let me put it this way. The guy working at the port, no matter how much he makes, he's really not your enemy. The guy who owns the port, who makes all the money, controls all the flow of goods and services, who has to know the right people in order to be able to buy that port, that's probably your enemy, okay? Let me just make that very clear, okay? Some guy working 60 hours, these guys lose legs, they lose limbs, they lose hands, fingers. Some of them die, they get crushed under crates. You need them, okay? Let me preface this by saying, I hate unions. I have always hated unions. I grew up in an area where everyone's dad was an iron worker, a steel worker, an electrician. Everybody's dad worked for the unions. And then when they got out of school, they worked in the unions. And when I started busting my butt to make a living, these guys were making more money than I was, taking naps in trucks, okay? I hate unions. But what I don't hate about unions is that unions employ Americans. And I love Americans. I love my fellow countrymen, no matter what. That's the nationalist spirit that's missing from this entire equation. Do mobs run the ports? Absolutely. They run everything else, by the way. And by the way, all the government told us the mob was gone. I'm from Chicago. I remember when they took out organized crime. You know what you have that's left after you take out organized crime? Unorganized crime. And that's when innocent people die. Just simple facts. The ports themselves, we've seen this today. So I went back and forth on this before I try not to support or endorse. I just want to share the truth. I have a longshoreman who's on my Telegram channel, and he's been very open and honest with me about this stuff for 3 years when I used to do live chats on Telegram. And he walked us through the last attempted, strike, or when we were supposed to go on strike before. These guys were not given a day off in COVID like the rest of us were. Do they make good money? Yes. Do they make as good money as you're seeing on the internet? No. Fake news is fake news. You have to evaluate everything. Everybody just looks at a tweet and, oh man, these guys make more than doctors. Some of them probably do. Some of the tenured union guys probably do. The head of the union, yes, he makes $900,000 a year. Great. He has a boat. He does all kinds of, union guys make money. That's why people join the unions. That's why you join the union. So you make more money than the average laborer. That's what unions are. That's why they exist. America endorsed them. I don't like them. I think they're bad for business, but they exist and they employ Americans. So right now we have this attack against the longshoremen, and here's the reality. Their contract stated clearly zero automation. The contract with the port owners, who are probably the deep state bad guys, because that's a major asset to own. They own a port to your country. You know who owns canals? China. So the guys who own this massive thing, who make all the money, they also are in collusion with the media, and they have plenty of shills online. They're going to hammer away at these longshoremen until they go back to work so the port owner can make more money. That's the reality. I hate unions. I don't like what's going on either. But that's just the truth. I'm going to seek the truth. Whether you like what I have to say or not is completely up to you. I won't be offended if you don't, and I'll be glad to have a very mature debate with you. But here's the simple tactics that I would use if I was a communist. Number one, I would certainly, absolutely make sure that you know that the guys that are on strike make more money than you do. Why? Because that would make you jealous, and you would hate them. And if I was a communist, I would sit around and say, well, this guy made all this money, and he was like, I want to remind you, Trump has been acquitted of cases. Trump is a billionaire, and you support him. The guy at this port realizes, and he's probably a piece of garbage. I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to help you understand what I believe is happening to the American people again. So you have this port official who said, I'm going to cripple America. Well, he has the power to do that, number one. And that's the power he wields as a union head. I don't like it, but it's the way it is. And when he did this, he basically, said they violated and breached a contract. There was a contract between the ports and the laborers, and the contract clearly stated no automation. They have been slowly putting in automation, violating their contract. The port owners make more money because they can lay people off, reduce their hours, the same things you would not want being done to you or being done to those guys, Americans. The port owners themselves have been raking in profits. He told you how much they've made. That they who owns the port is the they that you're trying to figure out who it is. And it's very easy to see who they is if you actually listen to other people and do real research. But that's the they. They is making more money while we, the American workers, are making less. So yes, they are going on strike. The timing is not good. I pretty much know that the average longshoreman who wants to feed his family, who makes good money risking his life to put goods and services on and food on your table, he's probably not happy about not being paid while he's picketing either. But the mere fact of the matter is the port owners have stolen money through profiteering from the longshoremen. It doesn't matter how much they make. When did it become a bad thing in America to make more money? Instead of complaining about how much money a longshoreman might make, perhaps maybe start getting active about you yourself making more money, advocating for you to get a raise. What's happening in America is that, let's just look at the facts of the matter. About 60% of our ports are closed right now. That's bad. Our stores are being emptied by people who didn't prepare. You should be prepared. If you've been listening to me long enough, you would have the things you need right now to not be stressing about bottled water and toilet paper at Walmart. Most of the patriot movement has been saying, we got to shut it down and it's just going to, you got what you wanted. You got what you wanted and now you're crying about it because somebody makes a good wage. You know what a prosperous nation has? People who make good wages. You know what a horrible country has? People who don't make any money, who complain about people who make more than they do. This is how communism is created. They divide into classes. They conquer all the classes based on economic status and ultimately convince you that that guy shouldn't make money because you don't make that much money, and then no one makes money. If you're complaining about how much money a union head makes in America, the ILA is a fairly small union. Go look at the guys who headed up IBU. You want to know how much money they make? It's about 10 or 20x what the guy from ILA makes. Period, point blank. Leadership is rewarded. Anyone who's a leader of a union, CEO of a company, they should always make more than everyone else. They shouldn't make the ridiculous amounts that they're making. I don't deny that. I mean, no CEO should be making $100 million a year while their shareholders lose money. They should be taking dividends on profits. Union heads, their entire job is getting their guys more money. And yes, they put their hands in the cookie pot all the time. Yes, most of them are corrupt. I don't care about the union official. I care about the Americans who've been stolen from by a large corporation, and you should too, whether you like unions or not. I personally hate them. I've been on record for 15 years. I actually was scared to say it 15 years ago, but I think the union structure as it stands today is a destructive, inherently awful system for capitalism. But it exists, and Americans work there. 50,000 people are not working right now trying to defend their right to get their piece of the pie from these corporations which is exactly what you would do if someone was stealing from you. So I have unpopular opinions. I'm not here to like everyone agree with Eric. I'm here to try to show both sides of every story when it makes sense and be able to evaluate and find out where I think we're being propagandized. And I think the American people are being propagandized to attack the longshoremen, and the port owners are getting off scot-free. And that's exactly what they want. And the more you feed into it, the worse this country is going to get, because you're now siding with the enemy and destroying your ally. And again, for about the fifth time, I hate unions. There's no incentive for me to say this. I'm just trying to seek fairness. I want all of you to be paid properly. I want everyone in this country to be paid properly. We've all been shorted on pay somewhere along our career. We've all gone through these things. These guys actually have a mechanism to make it right, and they're exercising it. That is actually their freedom to be able to do so. Does it suck that we're not going to have things that we need coming up? Yes. But I'll tell you what, I bet we'll have a bigger voice in this country when it's all said and done with. If we go through, say, 2 weeks of this, and at $5 billion a day of commerce, people start listening to the people who are in trouble. So I've heard this for 3 years. Oh man, just shut it down. Turn the grid off. We need to do this stuff. We need to get back to here. You got what you wanted, and all you do is complain about somebody else's wages and not looking in your own mirror and trying to fix your own life. I mean, that's a fact. That's where we are. So we can either stand together as Americans and try to make things right, or we can continue to fall for the same communist propaganda tactics for the rest of our lives and end up in this endless cycle of ups and downs and ins and outs, and he's horrible, they're horrible. Everybody look in the mirror, ask yourself what you would do in their position. I don't care how much money. I'm stoked. I think it's awesome that guys who work a manual labor job can make a six-figure income. I wish all of you made a six-figure income, because to be honest with you, if we didn't have the laws set in place that violate every antitrust law, create monopolies, create oligarchs, if we didn't have that, all of you would be making that type of money. That's the only good thing that unions do, is they actually provide a fair wage. I don't believe that they care about their guys at all. They use them as a pawn in negotiation so that they can make more money. But this is America, a capitalist system. That's what we sit in right now. In capitalist system, you have the right to play your cards any way you see fit in order to get your fair share. That's the only place I'll use the word fair share. I don't believe that the rich should pay more taxes than anyone else. Period. Fair share is another term that communists use all the time. And right now, guys, I'm watching a communist narrative take over the hearts and minds of Americans. And some of the more ridiculous things that I've heard. Donald Trump has a 25-year relationship with the head of the ILA. There are pictures dating back 25 years. He went to Mar-a-Lago last year. And yet I hear people online saying, oh, Kamala Harris is doing this. She's not going to do anything. She's not going to do anything to help this situation. They have no power. I don't even know who Joe Biden is. They have no power. I believe what's going to happen in the end is that Trump is going to exercise this relationship. He's going to end the actual strike that's happening right now, and then goods and services will be flowing into this country again. Stay patient. We're not even 24 hours into the strike, and to be honest with you, if it wasn't for unprepared people who panic all the time, there would be plenty of goods plenty of goods on the shelf in states that haven't been affected by a hurricane. Now is the time to prepare. You're getting the warning signs that you've been looking for. Hopefully you're prepared. Prayer is the best way to prepare. But I wanted to come on tonight and talk about that. Way too much to type on Telegram or Twitter. Way too much to type. But really think about your actions or your emotions and who's driving them, whether it's you or an outside force. First thing to look at. And then look at the end result. I've been watching this all day in my free time. I pop on. I'm constantly taking in information. When I have free time, I'm popping on my phone and I'm watching people. These longshoremen are greedy. They're asking for more money. You probably wish you could do the same thing. Look in the mirror. I know if I felt like I was being robbed by a port and I was getting shorted and they were stealing my jobs in the violation of a contract, I would want to take measures into my own hands also. This is the first man versus machine. The best part about this communist structure is that and it's a communist psyop immediately when in the first thing in the morning we saw pictures and video. Oh, look how they do it in China. They have a bunch of kids with joysticks that are just moving around containers. Yes, they do. They also have the highest levels of poverty in the world, and they are completely locked down in communism. So while people are looking at this and saying, oh, we could just do what they do in China. Yeah, cool. The port owner will make a hell of a lot more money. You'll still be poor. 50,000 people will be out of a job. There'll be nobody buying in the marketplace, and the cost of everything will accelerate even higher. Even higher, because they'll have full control. This is an issue that has been bothering me all day. I wanted to talk about because it's just so obvious that this is a communist psyop. You know, I don't care about union officials. They're as disgusting and gross and corrupted as anyone else. I do care about my fellow American. I used to do mortgages back in the day. I did mortgages for all kinds of longshoremen, some of the nicest people I ever met, and they actually handled their business very well. They were very professional, and they were blue-collar guys. They were just normal guys. Yes, they happen to be paid well. Go ask an electrician what he makes after doing it for 10 years. They make the same amount of money. The illusion in this country is that you have to have a college degree and you can make money. The reality in this country is there are 85,000 jobs like that, electricians, plumbers, that people aren't taking, and those are six-figure jobs too, because you need plumbing, you need products, you need electricity. If the people who provide the most basic services, like getting things off of a boat and into a store, if they aren't compensated well, they're not incentivized well. And then you're going to have an even worse system. But to see people praising, oh, look at China, they do it so well, it's all automated. I think that's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's cool. And it's probably going to happen here in this country at some point, but we've got to phase out the manual labor so we don't have unemployment shock. They don't care about unemployment shock in China at all. By the way, our unemployment numbers right now are higher than they were in 2007 before the great financial recession. We don't need more people unemployed. I promise you that. Look at things from a bigger picture. Look at them from a different lens. Look at yourself in the mirror and make sure that you're not falling for clear communist propaganda traps. These are obvious. And that's why I did this live tonight, because it's way too much to type. I don't feel like people misinterpreting my words. You can see my face. You can look me in the eye. This is what I believe to be true. I believe that this entire situation we're in right now is terrible. I believe it's going to get worse, way worse in the next 30 to 45. There's 2 more hurricanes coming. Our airborne divisions are getting ready to go to the Middle East while hurricanes are coming. Really think about that. Our National Guard, we have National Guard in Africa, the Middle East, and Europe right now, helping other countries with their immigrant and natural disasters and wars, while no one's taking care of ours right now. And the one group of people that's standing up for a violation of a contract that they have, a multi-billion-dollar contract, you know, it's almost like people saying, you know, I really need my widgets from China so bad. I hope more Americans get screwed by big companies who make lots of money. That's literally what you're saying. That's all I have for today. That's all I've got for today. You know, a lot of things going on right now, and this is just, it's a fascinating time to be alive. There are some people I can see right through these things. You know, I can see right through. Oh, show them how China's doing it. I mean, I can imagine the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain of the guy saying, okay, these guys are standing up for what they believe, and they're Americans. So how do we de-Americanize them? Let's show them how much money they make. They make way more than all the people who complain about it. Yes, prices are going to go. They were going to go up with or without the port shutting down. If it wasn't the port shutting down, I promise you, the evil people of this world, we're going to figure out another way to do that, either now or through the election season. This was coming. Been warned about it for years, and it's now happening. But you can see how it happens. Oh, you know, let's get them to hate the workers. Let's hate the workers. So if you're hating the workers and you won't pay attention to the actual people who stole from the workers, which is us, and then, you know, well, this worked out well for the first 2 hours of social media. Let's put out a video about China. Yeah, they'll like that. They'll love that. Look how cool. It's like a video game where the guy gets $1 an hour to do it, and he's got to eat a pangolin later tonight. You know, this is all brainwashing. This is all a psychological operation. You've got to be in tune with God. You've got to have patience. You can't react to the things that you see quickly. That's exactly what they want you to do. And we're watching it happen. You get a post out there, oh, Hezbollah is getting ready to launch here, and Israel's going here. They're going to go into the border, and Iran did that. They're going to do that. If they're telling you they're going to do it, it's being orchestrated by someone. Okay? Real war, they just attack. If they're telling you ahead of time, they are wanting your emotional response. I've said this over and over again for years. In a psychological war, your emotions are your currency. Invest them wisely. All that you are seeing right now is not as it appears. And that's just a fact. And I'm doing my very best to be able to show you these things and document them and put them in real time to help you. So if you hate my message, I understand it, and that's fine. We can talk about that. Don't hate the messenger. I'm just trying to help. That's all I have for you here tonight, guys. Thank you for being here live with me late at night. It's 11:10. We've been on for an hour. I love you all. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you for watching these videos. Thank you for sharing these videos. I've had a lot of people send me emails and DMs and texts. I don't even know how some of you get my phone number. I think it's probably available online somewhere, but phone calls from people. Thank you for your support. I'm not trying to be a big media figure. I'm just a normal guy in a sweatshirt in my guest bedroom, trying to do my best to see through the lies of the world and help you out. Great. Thank you so much for the people in the Bitcoin video. I was hesitant to share that. Thankfully, I got permission to do so. Hopefully that helps you understand it. I'm going to do a lot more of those breakdowns of specific topics in the coming weeks. Got 2 interviews tomorrow, another interview on Friday lined up. So we're going to have a lot of people coming on here and sharing ideas. I am not the answer. I am not the oracle to come through. There's a lot of truth out there if you can see it. There's way more lies than truth. I try to point out the lies as often as I possibly can, but today I wanted to focus more in on the mindset. If you really want to get through what's coming right now, you need to learn how to separate and understand when you're being propagandized and when you're not. And when you're not is like a peaceful time in life because it's about 5 minutes out of every day. It just happens all the time. So be lenient on your fellow Americans. And remember, we're Americans. It's us against the world. It's always been. We don't have a greatest ally. We don't have an ally at all. No one's ever come to our defenses. That's just a simple fact of the matter. And really, since the Revolutionary War, that was the last time we got help, and that was from the French. So until then. Until we see someone actually come to our help, like it would have been cool if Israel or Ukraine was like, you know what? You guys have given us so much money. You've been so kind to us. You've created so many millionaires in our country. Let's send some relief to these hurricane victims. That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen. They asked the first question in the debate was about Israel. Israel runs this country. If you hate that I'm saying that, stop following me. Or if you'd like to learn the truth, I will break it down for you systematically over the coming weeks. I can prove it 6 ways to Sunday. I think almost everybody can. It doesn't mean I'm anti-Semitic because I recognize a corrupt country is running game on another country who they own. And it doesn't make me anti-Semitic to recognize the truth. I'm neither of those things. I'm just trying to find the truth. I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. I'm just pointing out that Israel is a corrupt nation that uses their intelligence agencies to create wars against themselves to sucker punch America into war. There's 40,000 of our men and women over there right now. Prove to me that the leaders of these terrorist organizations aren't psyops. You can't do it. There's been more caught that have been proven to be. Anyways, I digress. God bless you all. I love you all. It's such a crazy time to be alive. I'm just so happy I could be here with you guys and try to help any way I can. Thank you so much for all of your help, the feedback on the social media channels and the comments. I learned just as much from you guys as I hope you learned from me. That's the way it should be. I love you guys. Get some sleep. It's 11:15. I got to get back to work here for a couple hours. So until tomorrow, I don't know if I'll be live tomorrow. It's a men's ministry night. Probably Thursday I'll be live, but I'll be doing some recordings during the day that you'll see in the next week or so. So until next time, God bless you all. God bless this country. We're going to get through this. This is a crazy, crazy time. Just take time in the middle of the day to not be a victim of the controlled narrative designed to steal your emotions. Just take a breath, really think through things, and you're going to be just fine. So is this country. I don't anticipate this port strike is going to last longer than a week. That's just my guess. And we're going to be just fine. We always have been. We always will be. So until next time, guys, I love you. God bless you. Have a great evening.